The Right Angle coming at you live with an update on a lot of things that have happened. You can follow me at Just the Right Angle on Rumble, where I talk about issues that affect folks. Also, YouTube, Keep Arkansas Legal, and lots of many other channels. I'm on Keep Arkansas Legal and Truth Social. And of course, I have my Facebook page. Most people have talked about the little girl with the axe and knife that had to defend herself from a rapist. Let me put a picture of her up. Actually, I forgot to add her as a graphic, but she's become very famous now and rightfully so, for having to defend herself. Oh, there's a graphic of her. I actually want to talk a little bit about the details of her in a little bit, because her story, as crazy as it is even worse when you talk about what she's had to deal with. Well, I want to talk about this little kid right here. This is a kid in Britain. I don't know his name, but he's talking about the education system that's going on in the United Kingdom over there. And I'm just going to play his message while I share this feed with a few other people on Telegram and a few other places. What you need to listen to what this kid's having to deal with.
In schools, they're pressuring us to learn about Islam and learn about the people that are coming over. I don't want to learn about that. I want to learn about my culture, my beliefs, and I'm proud to be English.
Have they taught you about the Bill of Rights?
No.
Did you learn about the Battle of Agincourt?
No. In school, they were teaching us about Islam, about Prophet Muhammad, and all their ideologies. They barely covered Christianity at all.
Did they tell you about how he was a warlord who brutally murdered people?
They wouldn't say any of that. And when I tried to stand up and say that some of them things, I would get in trouble for it. Suspended from school because apparently I was being racist. I wasn't. I was just trying to,
You're questioning an ideology?
Yes, I was questioning the ideology, and in my opinion, it's not the right ideology. They're trying to take away my free speech in school. They're trying to silence me in school, to suspend me from school for, trying to stand up and discuss stuff about Islam, the wrongs of it. So they only say, Islam's a peaceful religion. But if you look into their book, you'll find out it's not. In schools, they're pressuring us to learn about Islam.
Folks. This kid is having to stand up, and he just doesn't have to worry about being suspended. Remember, these Muslim people, when you criticize their so-called pseudo-religion, they will make threats against you. So he's risking his life. He may have to carry a knife and axe. I don't know where in Britain this guy is, but this kid with the extra bangs here is fighting for his heritage and his freedom. And he's already being punished by the taxpayer-funded government system that's supposed to be educating him. So I made a meme out of him. I want to make him a little bit famous, get him, I made him to the King of England. I think they should fire their government officials and replace him with this kid. But I want to talk more about the sad state of things that are going on around the world. This was a church burned in Canada. But I saved this. I had posted this earlier. This is the story of the girl who had to pick up the axe and knife to defend her sister. And it goes into a very graphic story of what she had to do. So there's kind of an icon of her, if you're wondering who I'm talking about. But this girl, it gives her name and the arrest and some of the details of what she had to deal with. So one of the girls, and got the entire story, the media is covering up and lying about it. There were 3 girls who were accosted and attacked by the migrants, the illegals. Lola's the hero of the video. She's the one with the axe defending her sister from the migrant attackers. Ruby is Lola's older sister who was attacked and hospitalized. And Maya is Ruby's best friend who was with him and went to call the police after Ruby was attacked by the migrants. Here's a summary of what happened according to one of the girls' mothers. So what happened was the girls were just out walking, and the man in the picture made comments to Lola, the younger girl, calling her, harassing her, doing pedo stuff. Well, she should have been arrested for stalking of a child right then and there, but no, of course they're not. After that, the man's sister, who's supposedly also in a picture, came around the corner and physically dragged Ruby, grabbed her hair and dragged her to the floor and started to punch. And then they both, the man and the woman, just started to kick her in the head while she was on the floor. At this point, my daughter Maya called the police, so my daughter's account for this is all a bit blurry. But that is when Lola had the weapons. She pulled them out to protect Ruby. After that, the man came back at Lola, recording her, making sure she showed the weapons to the camera, antagonizing her. Ruby was hospitalized after the attack with a severe concussion, a tennis ball-sized lump to the back of her head, as well as lots of bruises. And so this girl had to pull out the weapons to keep her older sister from being beaten and probably kidnapped and gang raped. And then the guy, the Paki Islamo rapist, knowing full well what would happen, got her on camera and antagonized her to show the weapon so that he could then call the police to have her arrested. And so you can see, I wish she'd have had a gun. There's a Netflix version. But you can see all the graphics of her. Yeah, basically that the government is allowing Muslims to kidnap and rape and beat up little girls. That this is what they are allowing, and anybody who tries to stand up to it is being arrested. And that's why we need to defend the Second Amendment here in the U.S., because Muslims and leftists are killing Christians. They're killing children. I mean, there's no better way to say it. That's exactly what is happening. So these British children are having to fight against the pedophile death cult of Islam. And it's a sad state of affairs that's going on over there. And part of the reason why they're having to deal with this, their children are having to deal with this, is because of the weakening of the culture that's been happening here in the U.S. And that weakening of the culture is, of course, the big trans movement, and we just saw the result of that. And the Catholic school shooting. So I want you to listen to this ABC report, and I'll read this from TikTok here. Sadly, I'll remember a lot.
4-year-old Robin Westman was able to leave what police called a video manifesto that they're now going through to try and establish motive. We've also been going through it and can tell you there are crude diagrams of the church. There are also photos of the weapons, and they include all sorts of writings, the names of past mass shooters, criticism of Israel, the name of President Trump written on the guns. There are also racial slurs, nihilistic statements, all painting the picture of a disturbed individual who carried out this mass shooting on the first week of school at the Annunciation Church in Minneapolis.
So the guy says there's a picture, Trump's name was written on one of the guns, and there were some racial slurs. What did they leave out? Yes, Trump's name was written on one of the weapons, but it said to kill Trump. Why did ABC leave this out? They did it on purpose so their viewers will think that the shooter was at least right-leaning. They left out any aspect that would indicate that this guy is a leftist. And they're also leaving out that this guy was trans. They know exactly what this motive of this guy was. This guy was a indoctrinated leftist, and he went to kill Christians. And it's not the only time it's happened. It's the Nashville Christian shooter was trans. And here's an example. This is by Benny Johnson. This is another act of tranny violence. because transgenderism is a mental disorder. Here's libs of TikTok talking about, gave the expose about the ABC leftist slant. But if you go through long enough, you'll see other examples of where this is going on. New York Post got it right. And they even talked about his manifesto. Oftentimes, these leftist propagandists, they'll leave out the manifestos of these mass shooters, because these manifestos usually show a hatred of God, a hatred of conservatism, and it shows how deranged the leftist agenda really is. Or usually they're also Muslim. So this guy was kind of both. He supported whatever is anti-Christian, so which in this case nowadays is both Islam and communism, or leftism is the two enemies of Christianity right now. So that's what this guy who trannied himself supports. Here's another example of propaganda here. This was now this is another attempt. What leftists do, if they can't paint someone as a right-wing shooter, they try to paint them. They try to say there was really no motive. There's no way to pin ideology. And these same people, the millisecond of as you can see earlier, they tried to make this guy a right-wing activist. Same thing with the guy that shot at Donald Trump. Well, he was registered as Republican. They didn't bother to mention the fact that he was registered as Republican to throw the primary, because they have open primaries in Pennsylvania, and that he was a longtime Democrat activist. And he probably wasn't even the real shooter. He was just a patsy. But here's some more propaganda from another Democrat.
These kids did extraordinary things, but they never should have been put in that position in the first place. This was a madman. He was an all-purpose hater, by the way. Hated groups left, right, you name it. There's no way to pin an ideology on this, and I think people should remember this as the facts come out about this manifesto. But what I learned from this, once again, is that guns, and we're a proud hunting state. There's a lot of law-abiding gun owners in Minnesota. But there's got to be more we can do. These kids.
So once again, she says ideology doesn't matter and blames the inanimate object, the gun. These are cowards, and yet you can see here. This was on the guy's notebook right there. Gender ideology is a dangerous and violent cult. And here's another from libs of TikTok. The police say they still know the transgender Buddhist motive targeted Christians, had LGBTQ terrorism symbols, had killed Trump was written on his gun, and he even expressed regret for transitioning. But he didn't turn on the people that indoctrinated him. He tried to shoot up a bunch of kids. And all these leftist politicians are mad about how we're identifying the transgender agenda. But it's not just leftists who support the transgender agenda. If you are from Arkansas, you already know this. When we tried to pass an effort to stop this mutilation of children, it was called the SAFE Act. Our so-called fake Republican governor, Asa Hutchinson, along with a lot of other Republicans, joined an effort to try to stop that. And because of efforts like him, we have more of these mentally ill trans people running around. Here's the famous interview, Tucker Carlson interviewing Asa Hutchinson regarding this issue.
Well, the legislature in Arkansas recently passed a bill that would ban doctors from prescribing so-called puberty blockers, heavy-duty hormones, to children who believe they're transgender. The law also bans surgeons from physical castration of children. But the governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, vetoed that bill on Monday. Legislatures in Arkansas just voted to override that veto, which brings us to where we are right now. Asa Hutchinson is the governor of Arkansas, and he joins us to talk about this story. Governor, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it in the middle of all this. Now, I think of you as a conservative. Here you've come out publicly as pro-choice on the question of chemical castration of children. What changed?
Well, first of all, your teaser as you led into this program did not accurately represent the bill. If this had been a bill that simply prohibited chemical castration, I would have signed the bill. But Tucker, as you know, this bill was overbroad, it was extreme, and went far beyond what you just said. And I made it clear that if this was about prohibiting procedures, sex reassignment surgery, absolutely, I would have signed that bill. But this, again, is the first law in the nation that invokes the state between medical decisions, parents who consent to that, and the decision of the patient. And so this goes way too far. And in fact, it doesn't even have a grandfather clause that those young people that are under hormonal treatments,
if I could just correct you for a second. Well, this is chemical castration. Of course, if you stop puberty and suppress the sex hormones, you're chemically castrating someone. So our description was correct. But let me just ask you, I mean, there are all kinds of, we're talking about minors, children here, and there are all kinds of things in Arkansas kids in every state are not allowed to do. Get married, drink a beer, get a tattoo. Why do you think it's important for conservatives to make certain that children can block their puberty, be chemically castrated? Why is that a conservative value, if you would tell us?
Well, first of all, you have parents involved in very difficult decisions. You have physicians that are involved in these decisions. And I go back to William Buckley. I go back to Ronald Reagan, the principles of our party, which believes in a limited role of government. Are we as a party abandoning a limited role of government and saying we're going to invoke the government decision-making over and above physicians, over and above healthcare, over and above parents, and say,
then you're pro-abortion as well. There are things the government is supposed to do, one of which is to protect children from abuse. If you're for this, then you might as well be for child trafficking and abortion.
And you can't do that.
So you believe it's healthcare.
You cannot engage in that.
How deeply have you studied this topic? With respect, it doesn't sound like you've studied it very deeply. I mean, this is an emerging field. There's not a lot of research, but the research that exists suggests that depression and the urge to self-harm and suicide is a component, is a side effect of taking these hormones. A study in the UK showed the overwhelming majority of children on puberty-blocking hormones had the urge to hurt themselves.
Yeah, exactly. The left will claim that if you don't allow this, the trans kids that self-identify as being another body will harm themselves. In reality, it's the reverse. And of course, as we just saw with the Catholic school, they'll harm other people as well because it's a mental illness. It needs to be treated as such. It needs to be stopped, not affirmed. That's the problem.
Why is that responsible medicine to do that to children? Why would you support something like that?
Well, I actually reviewed some of that study. I reviewed the high court decision there, and I think they are different than what you're talking about here. Sure, there's a lot of unknowns here. I studied this bill in contrast to what you just said. I spent
he lied.
a lot of time reviewing cases, meeting with people, listening to the experts, as well as to faith leaders as well. And I'm a person of faith, but at the same time, I'm a person of limited role of government. I sign pro-life bills. I sign many bills that would be looked at as very conservative, but this is one that crosses the line. There's no need for it.
Hold on.
Notice he said he signed. He never pushed for them. He signed because he had to. And he thought, he was ordered by the globalists to block this bill because he thought they probably thought they could block this bill if they put enough pressure.
And I'm sorry, but hold on. You say there's no need for it, but you've said that you've seen research that shows the mental health of children who receive puberty-blocking drugs improves. What is that research exactly?
Well, the research that I've seen shows that these troubled youth, these ones that have gender dysphoria, that they also have depression. They have suicidal tendencies. It's a higher suicide rate than others. And they go to their parents. The parents go to doctors, and they try to deal with this very difficult issue. I don't think we should deny them health care.
Hold on. I'm sorry. You're the governor. You just vetoed this bill. You said you're familiar with the studies. No one disputes that children who are asking for puberty blocking drugs or been recommended to their parents or doctors may be depressed. That seems very likely. I think the studies show it. Cite one specific study that shows puberty blocking drugs improves the condition. Does it make children less depressed? Does it make them less likely to harm themselves, to commit suicide? Just name one study that shows that, please.
Well, I would refer you to the American Academy of Pediatrics. I would refer you to the physicians that came out in opposition to this bill because they understood the risk to these young people. And if you prohibit the medical care that this bill prohibits, then you're going to endanger these young people even further. So I would cite
how do
all
we
of those
know that?
medical
Hold on,
experts.
this field barely existed 10 years ago. Cases of gender dysphoria, so-called, have increased by thousands of percent. In the research that we have suggests the opposite of what you're claiming. You clearly aren't familiar with the research. And so my question is, have you spoken to any of the biggest employers, the big companies in Arkansas about this? Have you taken any calls from Tyson's, from Dillard, from Walmart? Has anyone from those companies called you about this bill?
No, but Tucker, you're saying, first of all,
you haven't spoken
there's no
to
studies,
one
and then you cite a
corporate
study.
interest. No. There is not a single study that I'm aware of that shows an improvement in the mental health of children who take puberty blockers, who are chemically castrated. And you couldn't cite one. You're not familiar with the research. You were told by doctors that it's a good idea and you went with it. But I just want to clarify very quickly. Have you, and I just want to be clear on this, have you spoken to any corporate interest in the state of Arkansas about this bill?
Tucker, I answered that. I answered that question, and I said, no, I have not.
No,
you have another question.
Okay.
And by the way, it turns out he absolutely 100% lied. And you can see the smirk on his face when he does that. Absolute 100% bold-faced liar. He did get orders from Tyson Foods on what to say regarding this issue. But it's because of worthless, cowardly pieces of crap like this is why America's falling apart, and people like this that run the United Kingdom is why you have kids having to defend themselves. And this is also why in Arkansas, even though we're a Republican supermajority, we have another problem, and that is green energy. I've talked about this before. The members of the Ashley County Quorum Court declined to take additional further action regarding the Fairview Solar Project at its August 19th meeting. Now, I have here a copy of the Ashley County Ledger. It's $1. You can get it at a Jade Foods, other places. But basically, the Ashley County citizens are going to be forced to have a solar panel farm, whether they want one or not. It says in this art, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll say here. I'll say a quote here. We can't stop the landowners from selling the property, and we can't determine who buys it and what they put on it, J.P. Ronnie Wheeler said, telling the other members that he had asked an attorney with the Arkansas Association of Counties about the matter. The attorney told me that if there had been any kind of signed agreements made with the county, and then we as a court realized that there had been some misleading information shared, that we could vote as a court to have our county attorney do what needs to do to eliminate us from those arguments. Wheeler, who's one of the Quorum Court members, ultimately made a motion to do that, receiving a second from Billy Pippin. Justice of the Peace voted 7-1 to try to rescind the tax abatement resolutions, with JP Jeff Langley voting against the motion. JP Ron Miller was not present. This is in regards to a solar panel farm. It's the Fairview Solar Project. It is in the Fountain Hill area. Let's see, it's supposed to be around Ashley 489 and Arkansas 8th. But what these solar panel farms do is they cut down a whole bunch of trees. They put in these big solar panel farms. They then build a big, massive infrastructure. They get millions of dollars, usually from federal funds as well as state and local funds. You basically, as a taxpayer, bankroll these clowns, and then they brag about how much energy they make and supposedly how much money you save, but you don't see the cost on the other end. And they're never held accountable. Many of these have been proven to be absolute scams. Same with the windmills. And it's gone on here. This is Ashley County and basically Crossett, Hamburg area. But then here's another one in the city of Keogh, which is around Lonoke County, Quorum Court. This is from Courtney Roldan, and she's talked about this. It's already a done deal. This company walks away with a 65% tax abatement and 5,600 acres for a solar energy project. This is a post from the screenshot from the CSKO Facebook page. Apparently Judge Irwin, the county judge, signed a $700 million revenue bond without any negotiation. And she's the city of Keogh. So it looks like the mayor may have tried to find out what was going on. And again, a lot of these are utility companies that get involved in this mess. They do these stupid pet projects, and then we end up fitting the bill. And have you ever seen utilities go down? There's a reason why. It's because they're allowed to invest in these stupid kind of projects. So that's just a few things I wanted to talk about. Find a way to get involved. You can see Courtney Roldan. This is a bigger detail, long update regarding this. And then, of course, if you want to see more about this solar farm in Ashley County, you can pick up the Ashley County Ledger, or I think if you subscribe to them, you'll get to read the rest of the story online. But yeah, our government officials are selling us out. They're making us weak. They're not protecting our children or taking our tax money. We, the people, need to stand up and get involved. Find out your Republican County Committee. Get involved. There's actually the Lincoln County Republican Committee is meeting tonight at El Charro in Star City. There's several other county Republican Committee meetings going on. Find out the status of your county committee. If it's conservative, help it. If it's not, reform it. Remember, when the wicked rule, the people groan. That's it. Y'all, again, look me up on Just the Right Angle. There's also links if you're interested in this to donate to help fund this. You all have a great day.